Please welcome Mimecast Vice President of AI, Machine Learning, and Threat Protection, Andrew Watson.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. There's a few still coming in. Despite that awful photo, I am actually very pleased to be here. And I appreciate you coming in. So I am VP of AI, ML, and Threat Protection at Mimecast. I'm fortunate to lead a team of really strong engineers, machine learning researchers, data scientists, and threat analysts who run the scanning layer that protects you and all your users, 43,000 counts from threats. So today, we're going to talk about the data that we've been putting out in our Global Threat Intelligence Report that was released yesterday. And our position, scanning 1.8 billion emails a day, gives us a very unique insight into the threats that are out there. So let's dig into these. So the threat landscape continues to evolve. Just in the first 9 months of the year, we've analyzed over 24 trillion events and protected users from over 9 billion threats. And that's an immense amount. I don't think I need to dig on that too much. But what's concerning, really, is not the volume, because we're very good at that. We've dealt with significant volume for a long time. What's concerning is the way that these attacks are evolving consistently and daily. So we see cycle times as short as 72 hours now for some attacks, us blocking them, and then the attackers coming back with a totally revised workflow. AI, obviously, we've been talking about that a lot today. I'm not going to dwell on it. But it is amplifying the speed and reach of these attacks. And it's enabling the attackers to come at us incredibly quickly. No sector's immune, so we see this across every vertical that we protect, be that financial, regulatory, and governments. And the attackers just are relentless. So humans are the common denominator. It's the new attack surface. We see them being targeted with all of these threats. And what you see here is an email that we've obviously changed slightly just for the purposes of the presentation, but it represents a very common approach that the attackers use. So it comes in from somebody that may well be known to the user, and there'll be some level of urgency there, and it will be convincing. So what this will be doing is leaning on everybody's desire to be helpful. With this email in particular, you can see I've had an unexpected issue. I really need your help. I trust you. Please help me out. I'll pay you back next week. In this one, we've got a little malicious attachment.pdf on the end of it. But this is perfect, right? So you can do this now in any language. The typos of 5 years ago, the white space, the old school obfuscation is not a thing anymore. Anybody can write an email, even in Pidgin English, put it into one of the LLMs, get it corrected, and make it very believable. And it can be tuned to make it sound like it's coming from somebody that you already know. So we'll dig in now to some of the attacks that we see, and we'll work through them in order, right? So the first one here is ClickFix. This didn't really exist over a year ago. We've seen an increase in this of 500% in the last 6 months. And it's now the second only to phishing attack that we see. So phishing is about 77% of all emails that we see coming in. 8% now is ClickFix. And so for those of you that haven't come across it, these is fake error messages. So the user will receive an email saying, click on this link, we've got to give you an important update, lots of love IT. And they'll click through it, say run this script. That will obviously install something in their environment that is unintended. The fact that this has gone from 0 to 8% in less than 18 months shows the speed of attackers adopting new ways of compromising users. The thing that's fascinating with this is that we're seeing them act like marketers. So the attackers will A/B test. They'll come up with different ways of phrasing both the law and the page that you go through to. They'll see which has the highest levels of engagement, and that's what they'll use for the next round of the campaign. So they'll test, they'll scale, they'll optimize, and they'll rinse and repeat. Weaponizing trusted services. So this we refer to as living off trusted services, or LOTS. And so all of those services you will have in your organization, we would probably annoy you immensely if we blocked them. But what attackers are doing is using these services to use the legitimate infrastructure of these organizations. So taking something like DocuSign, it will arrive from the DocuSign infrastructure. It will have all of the headers, everything in place as you would expect it to, but the malicious element is within the little notification message in the middle. Now, this could be a communication switch. It could be saying, please find attached the invoice from our recent transaction. If you didn't make this payment, or if you didn't carry out this, then call this number and we'll help you out. And obviously that then gets you off the corporate device, you're onto a phone, and you're away to the races. So the challenge here is, how do we block it, right? Why would an attacker build malware anymore if they can use these services? They're efficient, they're effective, and it's very scalable. Now, obfuscation continues to be a challenge for us. Fortunately, we're very good now at detecting it, but SVG files with embedded JavaScript, that's something that's evolved rapidly over the past few months. Anything like that, I mean, the old threat used to be documents with embedded content, with ActiveX content within them. Now it's things like SVG files with JavaScript, because it was executable content that was somewhere that it shouldn't be, which meant that no one was really looking for it there until obviously it became a challenge for us. So captures. Captures were originally used to keep bots off sites. Now they're being used to keep security professionals off sites. So we have some challenges there where we're trying to navigate captures. And it's actually one of the reasons that my team developed multi-vector protection that you will have heard about from Rob and Dylan and the team earlier this morning. QR codes, now they continue to evolve, and again, in a fascinating arms race sort of way. So we see them generated originally with ASCII characters and Unicode characters, and now we see the images being generated kind of at load time using CSS and JavaScript. We see the images being sliced up into various pieces and put back together when the user opens the email. And that's all incredibly difficult for us to detect, but we're able to, and we're stopping the users scanning that, because the challenge with QR codes is they're everywhere. So your badges have QR codes on them, and we're conditioned to see a QR code, take out our phone, and scan it. And that's a problem, because when a user sees a QR code, they'll take it out, they'll scan it onto their phone, and that gets them off the corporate environment. So all of the money that's being spent on protecting users and this kind of really locked down corporate device is gone. So it's actually 46 times more likely to result in compromise if you can get a user off a protected corporate device onto a personal device. And it is a personal device, right? It's an inherently personal thing, a mobile phone. We'll use it to take photos of our pets. We'll take it to bed with us, put it on the bedside table. And our guard is automatically lowered when we're on that device rather than our work laptops. So that continues to be a challenge. Now, multi-channel deepfake attacks. These are really interesting. I quite like these. So this is where we'll see users targeted with an email, and there'll very quickly be a follow-up. There'll be a phone call. And this will be a deepfake-generated voice, and it will align with the email that was just sent. And again, there's that level of urgency. It's playing on the fact that humans want to be helpful. We don't want to let anybody down. Now, some of the attacks that we see here are incredibly convincing. It will be generated based on the voice of a CTO. It will align, as I say, with an email that's just been sent. And it's very simple now to generate voice synthesis using very short snippets of sample audio. So the initial email builds the credibility, the follow-up call seals the deal, and then again, money is transferred. Usually that's the goal, the objective of this. And often the user doesn't even know they've done anything wrong until somebody spots the transfer that should never have occurred. Now, this is preceded usually by some level of intelligence gathering. It will be, someone will post on LinkedIn. We've all got friends, or maybe less friends, that post about their holidays on LinkedIn, or they'll do one of those little selfie videos of, I've just had an amazing week and closed a bunch of deals, right? We will just roll our eyes, maybe report it as spam, and then go about our business. But for an attacker, that's a really useful snippet of voice that they can use to synthesize a fake version of that individual. So this, as I say, incredibly credible, difficult to detect, and often only identified after the fact. So it's important that we're right up front of this, that we detect the phishing email and we stop it going any further. Remote monitoring tools. Now, legitimate services here, such as TeamViewer, AnyDesk, LogMeIn, all of these continue to be used as attack vectors. So these, again, trick users. It will come under the auspices of a communication from IT, and it will say, here's an important update that we need you to install. We'll give you a call at some point, and just do us a favor and help out when we get to that point. This looks legitimate. It bypasses malware detection because it is legitimate software. Some organizations are already using this, so you really wouldn't want anything on the endpoint to pick it up as malware because that's going to make IT's job even harder. But the problem is that it can then just sit there dormant and then provide an access at the point that somebody wants to pick it up. And so security sees this. They might just think it's IT troubleshooting. IT might see it and think that they installed it, but it's all under the attacker's control. So this is something that we see, again, evolving increasingly, and attackers really liking to use it. Because in the old days, when it was nation-states trying to write remote access Trojans that would sit on a device and evade detection, now it's flipped totally the other way, and it's legitimate software that's out there in the open. But the difference is who's in control of it. Now, collaboration platforms, things like Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, these store years of conversations. So if you just take a moment to think about what you've got within your Teams and SharePoint setups within your organizations, the amount of information that's there is immense. And if an attacker can get in there, they've got the org chart, they understand who's on holiday that week, so they can set up another social engineering attack. They can see who's important, the projects that are secret, the trade secrets, what's coming in the future, all from access to this one set of, this suite of tools. And we can't block it, because if you block SharePoint or OneDrive, again, your organization becomes it's far harder to operate. But once an attacker's in there, lateral movement becomes far more straightforward. So one of the things that we see attackers trying to do is get persistent access to these services. So users that have high levels of administrative access, so essentially all of you in the room, you are a key target for this. Because if the attacker is able to compromise your account, set up some kind of OAuth token in the background, and then have persistent access to the Graph API or any of the other services in the back end, you're not going to see it. So this is incredibly important for us to detect the initial attack vector coming in and be able to stop these things happening. Now, speaking of the initial attack vector, business email compromise continues to evolve. I said I wouldn't talk too much about AI, but this is a very relevant one for us to dig in on. So there will usually be some level of high-value target here. It will come in from someone important within the organization. There'll be some money transfer often. In this example, it's obviously a little bit toy, but wiretransfer.exe, double-click the link, see where you go. It's incredibly easy now with AI to generate more than just that top email on the chain. So we've seen attacks actually targeted at Mimecast that have simulated an entire email chain with our CEO, Mark van Zetelhoff. And so he apparently signed up for a management training course. We had the entire thread where he was inquiring about availability, booked himself onto it, then had a lovely time. And a few weeks later, then this apparent thread was saying that he hadn't paid for it, that the invoice was outstanding. It got sent to our accounts payable team. And it was asking that they don't bother Mark with this because he's very busy, but if you could just do us a favor and pay $60,000, that'd be great. Fortunately, we didn't. We detected it. But this is the sort of thing that attackers are even sending to companies like Mimecast, which seems like a really bad idea, trying to send this to a security organization, but there you go. So these multi-party conversations are also now increasingly generated into the threats. We will see chats going on that never happened between a CEO, a CFO, approving a transfer, a purchase of something, then landing in somebody's inbox saying, just do us a favor and finish this off. The average cost per incident, when this unfortunately does occur, is £120,000. So it's very significant. And it's only through using AI that we can detect these sorts of things. Again, little pitch for multi-vector. The context is incredibly important in detecting these things. And so any level of suspiciousness will allow us to put this on hold, and then you guys are responsible for working out whether it was actually legit, and we'll give you as much information as we can about that in those situations. So in terms of industries being targeted, it's everybody, right? But attackers are getting smart to this. They're using different attack methods for different industries. They have different playbooks depending on the organization that they're going after. So manufacturing, arts and entertainment, real estate, we see that extensively phished. That's about getting some persistent access in there. And then IT, professional services, and legal often is impersonation. So the hypothesis here is that maybe they will think that they'll be detected more quickly in some of these organizations, so get in, get out, whereas the others, maybe they don't have so much focus on security, and once you're in and you've got the credentials, then you can start to exploit that at your leisure. So one of the things that we see, particularly the interplay between some of these, with real estate and legal, is house purchases or company M&A activity, where someone doesn't want to be the weak link in the chain. Somebody doesn't want to slow this down. So attackers exploit that. They have a really urgent feel to the messages. It's high value, it's time sensitive, and there's an awful lot of money at stake. So again, we see this kind of unique workflow depending on the organization that's being targeted and the attacker's playbook. So to the attackers now, I mentioned nation states earlier. Now, it's becoming less relevant, in my opinion, slightly controversial, but it's less interesting now to know necessarily who is behind the attack. It's more about the how. What's the vector that they're using? What's the toolkit that they've got? And so cybercrime as a service becoming more and more mainstream means that there's a lot of commonality between the ransomware tools, the phishing kits, and the way that these different attack groups are working. Groups like Scattered Spider, we've heard a lot about. So they're an incredibly smart bunch. They are really adaptive. They're using social engineering extensively and living off trusted services. So again, appearing very credible, not actually bothering to write much themselves, but just making really powerful use of the tools that are at their disposal. So as I say, the challenge here is the fact that once one organization is attacked using one set of tools, another set of attackers could pick those tools up, attack someone else, but we've lost that commonality as we used to have. Initial access brokers, we'll speak about in a moment, but this, again, furthers that reuse across different organizations. So what we're looking to do now is kind of, as I say, focus on tactics, make sure that we've got the protection in place regardless of who's on the other end of it. So initial access brokers. What they do here is gain access to an organization, so be that through the application of a phishing kit, trying to compromise credentials, get access to VPNs, and admin access in particular, and then trade them on online marketplaces. Now, they're often referred to, these organizations, as the estate agents of cybercrime. So they will gain access to an organization, they'll test that the credentials work, they'll understand the value of that based on who's on the end of it, the admin roles potentially, the access that that individual has, whether that access persists across VPNs, and then they'll market it. And so it's like Rightmove, essentially, some of these online marketplaces, which will allow you to go in and buy accounts. The challenge here is that when a supplier is compromised and their credentials end up on one of these marketplaces, then the risk there is multiplied, which is why those accounts are particularly prized and higher value. So once one organization's breached, there's many victims. And again, we speak to the automation here. So once you've got into one, where else can you go with that? The industrialization makes this an incredibly efficient attack vector for these folks that are out there doing this. And now one more threat to talk about. So quantum. Right now, it's very difficult to break encryption, but we predict, NIST predicts, lots of people smarter than me predict, that within the next few years, encryption will be broken based on quantum approaches, quantum computing. So attackers are doing a thing that we're referring to as harvest now, decrypt later. What this means is that they're breaking into organizations, they're finding as much data as they can possibly exfiltrate, and they're putting it somewhere safe for them until they're able to decrypt it. So if you have data within your organization that is confidential and needs to remain confidential for 10, 20 years or in perpetuity, if that information gets out now, it might be that encryption protects you for a while, but it's important to think about the fact that at some point down the line, if somebody can decrypt that, all of a sudden those medical records, the classified information, the trade secrets are out there. So this is not necessarily an immediate risk as of today, but it is an incredibly important to think about as you're threat modeling and understanding the way that organizations are put together. So Mimecast, right? What are we doing? Well, we're defending against these threats. And in order to do that, it demands layered security, technical controls, vulnerability management, and human-centric training. So we've talked a bit about some of the threats that are coming along, the AI-enhanced attacks in particular, that mean that both behavioral and kind of more traditional approaches are required. So this is an essential way of detecting things. We know that not every one of these threats will be detected by every part of the solution. So layered security is essential because defense in depth matters more than ever. As we go around here, you can see we've got human risk command center at the center of it all, security behavior with engage, because humans are, as we keep discovering, the target now, so much more than ever before. Email and collaboration, threat protection around the outside, along with insider and aware, all working together to protect the organization. So as we say, no single layer is going to catch everything, and defense in depth is the only way forwards. So thank you for joining me today for that whistle-stop tour of the threat landscape. I'll be around afterwards for a drink. If anyone would like to come and send me any questions, I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you about anything that takes your fancy. I'll now hand over to Graham, who will wrap up the day. Thank you very much.